It's Redeye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Redeye Radio.
All across America. We are Redeye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning.
Hello.
You know, there's so much infighting and immediate media reaction, which was irresponsible and illegal. By the way, whoever leaked that stuff, that a lot of times what gets lost is the big picture here. An author from Tel Aviv by the name of Saul Sotka wrote this in the Jerusalem Post, and it was 12 observations following the 12-day war. Number one, Israel was done with its targets. This is really interesting. Once Israel bombed the countdown clock that counted down Iran's planned destruction of Israel on September 9th, 2040. That's when they predicted it. They had a countdown clock in Tehran. It was clear that Israel felt it did enough. You don't fly a plane 2,000 miles round trip for that. They specifically blew up the countdown clock. The operation set back Iran 20 years and saw not a single Israeli or American military casualty. The Iranians were so defeated that they didn't dare harm any U.S. personnel, telegraphing their paltry face-saving response in advance. What a great point. When the books are written, Netanyahu and Trump will be revealed as the main players, with everyone else being the played. Don't be surprised if Trump's F-bomb comments were coordinated with Netanyahu so he could tell his cabinet hawks, sorry, Trump is crazy.
He just might be.
It's awful. The Iranian Republican Guard is humiliated, and no attempts to put a brave face can save them. Their supporters are aging out. They are effectively the unwilling vassals of Israel and the United States. Their leaders live and operate at their pleasure and can be eliminated on a whim. Oh, man. The question is how much and for how much longer will they be able to control Iran's population of 90 million? That's a great point. You only exist because the United States allows you to exist. The United States and Israel allow you to exist. You are powerless. That's a great message about the Iranian Guard, the Revolutionary Guard. Number three. Wait a minute. I'm still on number three. The threats of regime change and the bombing of the headquarters signaled what could be the next stage, and the permitted and foolish lashing out at Qatar was letting them off the escalation ladder into what is a humiliating surrender. While regime change indeed would have been a dream outcome, it would be better coming from the inside and not from Israel and the United States. Don't be fooled. Iran is still a danger via its sleepers in the West, an asset they would still be able to use after their fall, but probably less so. Furthermore, regime change might be messy, so there's no reason for Israel or the U.S. To have that blamed on them. Legacy at stake, no doubt, in my mind, that Netanyahu and Trump would dismantle the Iranian nuclear program since they said they would, making an Iranian nuclear breakout a legacy destroying for both. Now, as they claim the program is destroyed, we can be assured that it is, since the destruction in both of their legacies would even be more acute if they were proved wrong now. And there is now minimal impediments to continuing to degrade the program. The Israeli The Iranian Republican Guard may try to rebuild, but it will be much harder now that they live inside what at any minute might be Israeli airspace again. Also, with the regime so obviously penetrated from within, expect their levels of paranoia and recrimination to be overwhelming. We already saw it yesterday. Expect plenty of executions of all the wrong people while Mossad assets safely continue their work as usual. Wow. And it just goes on and on and on, but I think those are the most important things there.
It makes sense. I think it's a very good assessment because if you stand back and look at the big picture, look how easy it was for Israel and the U.S. to gain control. And so then you ask your question. You ask the question. All right, weren't they always in control? I think it's well put. You exist only because you're allowed to exist. Because you can't deny the reach of Mossad. You can't. And now you can't deny the reach of the U.S.
Another observation, Trump's deniability strategy. The war is over. Israel again stands alone. That's what Trump needed to appease the disinformation-infected parts of his base who promised World War III. If war restarts between Israel and Iran because the Houthis start up again, Trump can disclaim all involvement. That's what today was about. The start of the war saw the opposite. The U.S. disclaimed any connection until it was clear that Israel was crushing the Revolutionary Guard handily, and then suddenly it was we. Well, I think the world is probably smarter than that.
I think so, too. I don't know that I buy that part.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that either. The war unraveled 40 years of Iranian buildup and virtually decapitated the regime in 11 days without a single combat loss. There is simply no precedent for anything like this in world history, nothing even close. I'm willing to consider that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't.
I'm willing to consider that.
I can't think of anything.
Israel has totally flipped the script. This is number 9. It can now attack Iranian proxies at will, with Iran not daring to fight back directly, the position Israel was in until 12 days ago. At the same time, it's now obvious Israel has extensive links with armed opposition inside Iran and is free to mount an internal proxy war against the Republican Guard. These are all great points. No, this is another observation. No proxies when it mattered. 40 years of Iran building proxies to attack, and those proxies were totally absent when the time arrived. Simply brutal. Wow.
Well, if you look at the strategy, I mean, Israel decimating to a large extent Hamas and Hamas's ability and Hezbollah. And then you go after the big head of the snake with Iran. There wasn't any will. Hezbollah and Hamas were vying for their own survival at that point, and it wasn't about working for Iran at that point.
The uranium. Where is the enriched uranium? Netanyahu publicly stated with a glint in his eye that they know where it is. Don't be surprised if the most audacious part of this war will one day be revealed to have been a special forces operation to extract it. More likely,
my gosh. Wow.
More likely, though, Israel knows it's under the rubble and will be monitoring that rubble from afar for the foreseeable future.
If they were able to extract it before this, that would be mind-blowing. But at the very least, if it's under that rubble, and you saw what they laid out in the press conference yesterday, you're going to monitor it, because the question is, can Iran salvage anything from that rubble?
I was thinking yesterday when I was watching General Kane explain everything and how the bunker buster missile works and what the pilots did and exactly, where they shot it down, 2 of the ventilation shafts, even though the Iranians tried to cover it up with concrete. The first missile came in and blew up the concrete. The second was the bunker buster missile that went right down through where they had placed the concrete that was blown up minutes before with the first one. And I thought to myself, and I hope this is an analogy that people understand, but I almost thought the media's in like the World War II narrative, as if the U.S. military went in and this was just carpet bombing. You don't know what you're hitting.
Right.
These
you fly over and hope that it hits.
Right.
Right. Yeah. No, these were precision driven.
I don't even mean just the missiles. I mean the whole operation. They don't the multi-pronged operation here that some of these observations put out, the media's assuming it's just Trump. They wouldn't have just dropped the bombs. They don't know what happened, then they just pulled out.
That seems to be their approach, yeah.
Right, like everything was just everything was unguided. It was Trump, just drop a bunch of bombs and missiles somewhere, and then we just pull out, and we have no idea what else is going on, when this seems to be across the board with Mossad, the CIA. Because, look, if Mossad was involved in it, so was the CIA. The CIA has done, we talked about it, and you and I said, they follow trucks. Yeah, if you've ever seen what they can do with these satellites, how close they can get close to reading a newspaper. This is how good it is. The stuff that you see from far away is not the ultimate ability of our monitoring systems from space. Not at all.
Right.
And so they probably, when they talk about the uranium and the press is going, but you didn't get to, well, yeah, whatever. The press assumes they have like a World War II mentality that everything is just and by the way, that would be wrong for World War II. I'm not saying because World War II, there was also a strategy. But the fact is, I'm talking about like unguided bombs, unguided narratives. They just went and says, let's just bomb everything, and that's it. And then we just pull out.
And hope for the best. Yeah. Well, it is interesting to see, again, if you do the true assessment of where the regime would be in Iran, much to the dismay and contrary to the message put out by the Ayatollah. This was not a victory over the U.S. This was the ultimate victory, quite possibly, over the regime. Because where do you go, even beyond being able to rebuild your nuke program? Where do you go internally? Where is morale if you're taking out top military leaders over and over again? Because I don't have any doubt in my mind Mossad is still at work. There may not be missiles being lobbed back and forth, but every move is known. And one wrong move by the Iranian regime, and it's over.
Trump, as we know, will promote the things that he believes he has done well. Some people might say brag. I think the world and Trump's critics would be mistaken if they took what the military has been saying the last couple of days and just saying they're just bragging and patting themselves on their, on the back. When you hear things like, there's never been anything like this before, and no other military has the capability of the multi-prong attack that we did on Iran to really take them down, where they didn't want to harm one U.S. personnel.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Nobody was lost on the American side or Israeli side in all of this. None of it.
Right.
And this was one, you crippled a regime by the air. The goal was not regime change to put boots on the ground and put in a new government. That may happen, but that wasn't the goal. But they were able to take it down using techniques and technology and a plan, a multi-pronged plan that hit every aspect of their society. If it sounds like bragging, they were just letting China and Russia know, and North Korea know, as this writer put in, let all of our adversaries know we have capabilities that you can't stop.
That was basically my point earlier in the show, that all of our would-be enemies understand not only do we have the ability, but under this administration, under this president, we have the will.
Yeah. That's a great point. The ability, having the technology, having the military that can plan it, having the cooperation with Israel or any other ally that we want out there, including NATO. Are you listening, Russia? I'm just throwing that out there as an example.
Right.
Since NATO came right after it.
Right.
Was that message also sent to Russia? You just saw what we did here. Now NATO has our full support. In fact, I'm their daddy.
He's the daddy. Who's your daddy? Donald Trump. He's your daddy. We answered that question, finally.
Okay, I'm on vacation. If I see any of my liberal friends. Wow. Hey, Joe.
Who's your daddy?
It's McNamara, that conservative talk show host. Hey, who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
Shut up. 866-90 Redeye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howe's Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Sweet cherry harvest in growing areas occurs now and lasts until mid-July. Will there be plenty of this 4th of July summertime treat to enjoy this year? The answer from Lance Honig of USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service is yes. In fact, this year's sweet cherry harvest forecast
represents the largest crop since 2017,
with a projected year-over-year production increase of 4%, driving the production gains. The nation's largest cherry-growing state, Washington.
They're expecting about a 29% increase this season. Weather's been really good for the crop there, and so great news from both Washington and a national perspective.
A slight production rise is also reported in Oregon. The offset in sweet cherry production this season is California.
There's some extreme weather during the bloom, and as a result, they're actually looking at a crop that's about 38% smaller than last year.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Redeye Radio.
It's Redeye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So by far, I think that in Trump's entire political career, this has been his best week. If you put on top of that the fact that illegal immigration is always in the news, Homan was out there again. You put that on top of it. This is a run that very few presidents have seen. And I think that when you take the illegal immigration thing and the border, it shows that Trump could get the job done.
Yeah.
And when the Democrats said, no, Congress has to do it, everybody's like, no, all you have to do is enforce the law. That took a huge, I think, club that the Democrats thought they could successfully use against Republicans out of it. Now this week, wow.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Redeye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Redeye Radio.
We are Redeye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I just was reading here again. The Senate War Power Stunt, Tim Kaine's resolution is gesture politics that accomplishes nothing. You know, it's they could vote on it today, Tim Kaine's bill, that Congress hereby directs the president to terminate the use of United States Armed Forces for hostilities against the Islamic Republic of Iran or any part of its government or military unless explicitly authorized by a declaration of war or specific authorization for use of military force against Iran, declared his original version. This week he amended it to apply only to offensive military action, and then underscores that the point is to limit a president's choices. The measure won't get 60 votes to pass, but as a privileged resolution, it will get a floor vote. Some Republicans, in addition to Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, may vote for it, as there's nothing easier to do in Congress than vote for something that won't pass. That's in there. The thing though, if Rand Paul, I don't know, does he consider himself as much of a libertarian as his father?
I don't know. I don't know if anyone has ever asked him that.
Because when you look at it, it's the debate of what a libertarian is. And I know what was the issue this week? Where Chip Roy was yelling at a guy from the Cato Institute, who's a libertarian. The libertarians who believe that everybody should be able to just the open borders concept of libertarianism, which to me is not a libertarian. A libertarian, there would, to me, because you and I think it was like 15 years ago, we took the test, and I think I was 75 to 80% libertarian. You were close to 90%.
Right.
And it's not, and neither you or I believe with the libertarian beliefs that we have that means that we should have open borders. It means that the federal government should return to what the authority that was given to the federal government was, much closer to the founding of this country than it is now. And the state should take up the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the state should take, and the states and local communities should take up the rest of it, because they were never supposed to be the responsibilities or the authority which has been given to the federal government. That was never supposed to be it. As a libertarian, that's my major concept. Well, part libertarian. My major point would always be, well, no, I'm not saying local government can't try that. As a libertarian, I've always thought that the biggest thing I should be doing is attempting to limit the power and authority of the federal government based on what constitutionally it should have been closer to the founding of this country and not how it's been expanded out now. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Being more libertarian than I am from that test we took 15 years ago.
Yeah. I may have gained a point, but by then, since then. But yeah,
a point on me or a point overall?
No, I mean I may have gained a point even further towards pure libertarian, but it isn't, because it is, again, because we go back to the labels that everybody uses, and you saw that in we've seen it in recent elections. I'll just say that, and several of the past election cycles. Liberals saying, well, I'm more of a libertarian, not a liberal. And they were doing that, I think, to a large extent because of Ron Paul, because Ron Paul didn't want to go to war. Well, they thought, oh, anti-war, that's libertarian. Well, that's not the whole thing, right? You don't get in and It's because someone's also said, well, I'm a liberal libertarian. I don't even know what that means. Yeah. So you agree with the libertarians on some things, and then the Libertarian Party, which is not today what it was years ago, and isn't true libertarianism, I believe. So I just think that ultimately, you know, if you there are so many things, because you mentioned like the border. You know, when John Stossel came out, remember that?
Yeah.
Stossel came out
Same
promoting
thing.
open border.
Yep.
You know, that there shouldn't be a border.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wow.
Well, and that's what I look at here when they say, you know, Rand Paul wouldn't vote for it. And, you know, people say, well, libertarians shouldn't vote for it. Well, wait a minute. We're talking about the three branches of government. You would assume most libertarians understand the three branches of government, and we've lined it out a couple of days this week. Congress does not. If one thing was instituted under the Constitution, it was the president's power as the commander-in-chief.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason was you can't fight war through consensus.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
It's impossible. You need, rightly or wrongly, you need one person, the lead general, the civilian general, in our case, to make those decisions, those instant decisions of what has to be made.
Right.
He should know that if you're passing another war powers resolution, Rand Paul should know that Congress cannot change the power of the presidency of the executive branch. Only a constitutional amendment can do so. If Rand Paul claims to be a constitutionalist, he should know that. No law passed by Congress can change what the president's authority is under the Constitution of the United States. Now, if you want to say the president is wrong in this case, that's fine. If you're saying the president is making the wrong decision, I disagree with him on that. But if you want to make that argument, that's a fine argument. If you're making a constitutional argument on it, that Congress gets to control this and the president has to abide by this law, then you're not a constitutionalist. Make sense?
No, exactly.
Okay.
I don't know how you can't see that the only way to change that, you may think the president shouldn't have that power, but you should also then believe the only way to remedy that and to get your way on that is to change the Constitution itself.
Right.
An amendment. And I don't get how because I understand why they don't want to go to war. They don't want to be involved. And I understand why. I mean, I don't agree. But saying we should only basically defend our borders, and that's it. If we're attacked directly, that's it. All right? If you want to change that, there's a way to change it. It's not an easy one. And they ignore that completely. They go around it and believe that the War Powers Act is binding, and it is not.
And we brought that up a couple times. There was an article in the National Review. I think the Wall Street Journal touched on it also. But you and I are we're amazed. We're amazed at the ignorance, even from some Republican members of Congress, that they don't seem to understand the three branches of government or the role and authority the president has as commander-in-chief. Now, since that power and authority has been given to the president can make decisions that are constitutionally correct and absolutely morally and strategically wrong.
Yeah. Right.
I don't believe this is not a case with what Trump did with Iran at all.
Right.
But if that's the case you want to make,
then you
I'm
make
fine
that
with
case.
that. I'll
make that case.
Yeah, we'll debate that.
We can have that debate.
But you can make that case. But when you start telling me it's unconstitutional, when clearly it's not,
yeah. Well,
that's a problem. At that point, you're not a libertarian. You're a Democrat wanting to interpret the Constitution in your own way.
You're using the tactics of the left in order to get that, basically, your interpretation in as the truth. And that is not the case. It's, again, I do believe that just because you have the power and or authority doesn't mean you always should. We can have that debate.
Yeah.
And it's case by case.
Well, Congress has the authority to make law.
Doesn't mean they always should.
So is Congress always right?
Right, exactly.
No, they're wrong all the time.
Right.
Now we've gone after Congress, or we've gone after executive orders from a president that we believe are unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
And if Congress passes a law, for example, McCain-Feingold, you and I weren't even working together when that came out, and you and I had the exact same opinion. No. Corporations aren't people. I don't. They're made up of people, and the management is made up of people, and it's the people. The corporation itself is a set of laws, rules, and regulations set up by a state. Of course, they're not a people, but the people are people who run it, and they get to have freedom of speech. You don't sit there and say a state sets up rules and regulations and laws to govern business, and the people inside of that lose their constitutional right to freedom of speech.
And can't petition in the interest of their business. Why is that?
They cannot petition the government to get a redress of their grievances because they followed the infrastructure law and rules and regulations that are set up for certain industries and businesses in the United States.
Right.
And if you choose to enter what the government has created, you lose your free speech rights. That's nuts. That's nutso talk.
Right. Well, and that's, again,
but you have Josh Hawley promoting that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Republican saying, well, no, everybody else should have it, but corporations have no right to free speech. Of course they do.
Yes, they do.
I don't like about it, because I dealt with Russ Feingold on that one time. He wasn't happy with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I called him arrogant. Who gave you, well, you approach us as if you are the arbiter of who has free speech or not. There's quite arrogance there. He wasn't happy with me at all.
Wow.
He wasn't happy.
You know, but again, and we've talked about it because inevitably, well, they have so much money. Well, you can pour all the money into it you want. It's the message.
We've seen that, haven't we?
It's what you do with that money.
Yeah. We've seen that hasn't worked.
Right. Especially in today's age. I think even more so today, you could say people have the ability to find the truth, and Hillary can spend $2 billion, or so-and-so can spend however much they want to. But if their message doesn't get across, then you don't get the win.
866-90 Redeye.
We'll be right back with more Redeye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Redeye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I was just scanning the Babylon Bee before we left here to go on vacation. And there was the Babylon Bee obtained a proposal that Mandami has in store for New York City if he's elected president. Raise the minimum wage to $150,000 a year. Also make it illegal for any business to close. This is how problems are solved.
There you go. There's a solution right there. See? That wasn't so hard. Make it illegal for businesses to close. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
How do you enforce that one?
Right. We'll arrest you. We'll come after you. It's like...
We'll sue you. I'm out of money.
Right. It's like the state of California wanted to go after people that leave the state, tax-wise.
Yes.
Remember the rich? will come after you for leaving the state.
If you leave, what was the proposal? If you leave, we could tax you for the next 7 years.
Yeah,
whatever that was.
Right.
Like
an
what?
exit tax.
Yes, exactly.
Like a breakup tax. Like, dude, it doesn't work that way. Sorry, that's not going to fly.
We don't have a literal wall to keep people from coming in. We have a financial wall to keep people from leaving.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, they might build a wall to keep people in. There's a question.
we had discussed that already.
In California, keeping people in. Where does this wall come from? Isn't that Nevada on the other side? What happened? Yeah, so we'll enjoy your vacation.
You too.
Marconi Award winner Dan Mandis filling in all next week right here on Redeye Radio. And we'll see you Monday morning the 7th.
This is Redeye Radio on Westwood One.